Yes,
Yes,
sir. Good morning, sir.
thank you
Good
very
morning,
much.
sir.
Thank you very much. Right.
Good morning,
So
sir.
this is also a basic course, just like crop physiology. So I hope to cover some basic aspects in botany related to the crops and other plantation crops. So you might, if you have followed the A levels in biological science stream, you might have learned certain things. But if you followed the maths or commerce stream, sometimes certain things may be new. But uh, at the beginning, I'm going to discuss very basic things. Then later on, uh, I hope to move to little bit advanced aspects. Right. So please keep your book with you, course module, so that sometimes I certain sections you don't have to study for your exam. So I will mention that so you can you don't have to uh, cram those things for your exams, right? I will tell it in on the uh, I will inform you at the time, right? Okay. So I'm Professor Kapila Khandawala, serving as the chair professor of the Department of Horticulture and Landscape Gardening by the University of Sri Lanka. And I'm doing the lectures of Botany of Crops module from the inception. Right. So at the end of the lecture, I will circulate notes, right? Because I'm not going to on my recording mode because then I will not be able to start the second session because it will take about 3 hours to complete. So if anybody need to record, I will allow you to record, right? Okay. So this is a 2 credit course, and I'm not going to give details of the chapters. Uh, Chapter 1 deals with the origin of agriculture, like
Recording in progress.
wild relatives, then centers of origin of cultivated plants, etc. Then second chapter deals with plant then in the morphology. Morphology means external appearance of the plant, like main parts like leaves and stems and roots and its modifications. Then we move to the flowers, flower structure, morphology. Thereafter, flowers can pollinate. So pollination, a little bit about pollination biology, pollinator syndromes, importance of pollination in agriculture. Then after pollination, fertilizer followed by seed formation. So we are going to discuss about seeds, germination, dormancy, and how to break seed dormancy. Thereafter, in the next 2 chapters, we are going to discuss about the cells, tissues, and cellular reproduction. Right. So you all know that at the end of the class, I will give you a home assignment. So you can score up to 30%. Uh, then continuous assessment 10%. So this will, I will give you this mark when you attend the practical class. When you come to the practical class next week, next Sunday, you will engage in certain practicals so that for that I will give you 10%. So you don't have to submit anything for attendance and entering the practicals. I will give 10%. Then you will get 20 MCQ questions for the exam, 4 structured essay questions, and 1 essay, right? Okay, right. With the very brief introduction, let me move to the topic, origin of cultivated plants. At the beginning of the lecture, I will give you the intended learning outcomes. For me, at the end of the lecture, if I ask a question, if you are able to answer, then I know you got that information, you learn it. So for me, that is important. But for your point of view, um, for the exams, we set most of the questions from the ILOs. So try to answer to the ILOs. So you can make sure that you know majority of the course thoroughly, right? First, ILO explain the origin of agriculture. Next, explain the meaning of crop wild relatives and domestication. Third one, describe the importance of conservation of crop wild relatives. Next, identify the geographical centers of origin of cultivated plants. And finally, identify the cultivated plants originated in different geographical centers, that is examples. Okay, right. You all know that long time people operated as foragers or hunter-gatherers. They gather wild plants and they hunt animals. That was the mode of operation long time ago. But later on, there was a shift from human endeavor from foraging to farming. So that is the basis of civilization. With that, civilization begins. So long time ago, foragers, they knew certain plants as edible, certain plants as toxic. So they select the edible plants and they consume. And they knew that certain plants can be used as medicine, as building materials, etc. So they pass this information, knowledge to the next generation. So if you look at long time ago, first farmer, once they consume fruits and once they throw these seeds away, seeds germinated, then they form trees and produce fruits. Then they knew that, right, they can harvest from uh, cultivating plants. So they start slowly to cultivate favorable plants. So that took a major turn in the human diet. Earlier, people rely most of the time on animal. So it was a mainly protein-based diet. But later on, it was shift to a carbohydrate-based diet with farming. So early farmers, the life was very early foragers, hunter-gatherers, life was very difficult. So they had babies, their wives had babies about with a long gap, like 3.5 years. But later, that gap was reduced and there was an increase in population of farmers. So foragers, hunter-gatherers, they gradually disappeared and farmers increase in their populations. So with that, after several years time, more people gathered to a city. So the problem of urbanization came into the scene. So so if you look at 1800, only 3% of the global population lived in cities, and there was only one city with more than 1 million people. So only 3% population urban. But 100 years later, in 1900, 14% of the global population lived in cities. You can see there was only 15 cities. But if you look at 2008, 50% of the global population lived in cities and 50% in rural areas, 50-50. You can see how population increased in urban areas. So this is the equation. Rural population in 1950, 60, 70, 80 gradually decreased. This is the global scenario. Urban population gradually increased, and at a certain point, 2008, 50-50 equally. But now, more urban, less rural. That is the situation, global situation. So people have to transport food from far away to the towns because most people live in towns. So they realized that cultivating crops in urban areas as an important aspect. So the word urban agriculture came to the scene, urban agriculture. Then there was a demand for new varieties because land is now limited. So we have to get high yielding crops, right? So to get high yielding crops, we should have original plants, wild relatives of crops, right? So that is a basic introduction to the course. So with that, I'm going to discuss about the theory part. That part actually it is only for your information to get an approach to the my lecture. So now let's look at what are wild relatives. Do you want me to explain a little bit in Sinhala as well? Can I continue with?
Sometimes it's better in explanation in single. Sometimes I mean, not always.
Yeah,
If
okay. I will terms and certain things I will just explain in Sinhala as well, right?
okay, sir.
Ex- Sorry, I would like to apologize from Tamils and Muslim students. Sorry, I don't know. I'm not competent in Tamil, right? Okay. Wild relatives. So, wild relatives are very much important, though we neglect wild relatives because present day crop plants were selected from wild plants. So, this gene pool of wild plants is known as wild relatives of crops. Crop plants were selected from wild plants. So, this gene pool of wild plants is also known as wild relative of crops. අපි අද වගා කරන භෝග තෝරගත්තේ වනගත භෝග දර්ශ වලින් ඒ භෝගයට අදාළ වනගත භෝග දර්ශ තාමත් අපේ පරිසරයේ තියෙනවා. But then what is domestication? It is the process of introducing plants from the wild and cultivating under the supervision of human. It is called domestication. Process of introducing plants from the wild and cultivating under the supervision of human being is domestication. So we domesticate a lot of plants as well as animals. Can you give an example for domesticated animal? Anybody? Yes.
Mm, dog.
Yes, yes, very good. Dog, cats. Yes, most of the animals we used, we have domesticated them. Even all the crops that we use today are domesticated crops, right? So, for the domesticated crops, usually it cannot survive without the interference of human being. Sometimes certain plants may survive, but most of the crops might not be able to survive without the interference of human being. So we have to always, or most of the time, we have to look after the plants. Right. Now you know the two terms, wild relatives and domestication. Please know these two terms by heart, right? Remember the meaning of these two words, domestication and wild relatives. So if you look at top wild relatives, here you can see um, this is rice, what we paddy, what we eat today, rice. It has large grains and full of starch, carbohydrates. So we like to eat it, but still we have crop wild relatives of rice in the wild areas. As you can see here, they have very narrow, small grains, so they are not tasty, but they have high fiber content. So today, if you ask you to eat it, we can't. It's not palatable. We can't eat it because no taste. But here it has a taste. So this rice was developed from this crop wild relatives. Still, you can find these crop wild relatives of rice plant in Putlam, Kalpitiya, Hambantota areas in the wild. So we developed this by gradually selection. So long time ago, our grandparents, great grandparents might have eaten these grains. Their taste buds were, I think, adapted to this taste. But later on, they select plants from these things, and through selection, they gradually develop good rice varieties. So if we want to further improve these varieties, still you have to depend on these wild relatives. So this is in Sinhala we call Atticale. It has large seeds but very little flesh. So we can't eat it. Not tasty. Our taste buds are not crops. So this is almost seedless and it has good flesh. This is Atamba, wild mango. Still you can find this plant in Singaraja area, Rakwan area. It has a very large seed and very little flesh. So you can't eat, but only uh, bats eat these fruits once it is ripened. But we like to eat improved mango varieties, Mangifera indica. This is tomato, very tasty, juicy, but this is very tiny original tomato. Right. We select from wild plants and later on we develop present day crops. But if you look at crop wild relatives or wild plants, uh, they are occurring in the wild area. So they are resistant to drought, resistant to flood conditions. They can survive under extreme heat, drought, extreme cold conditions, depending on the place. Then they are resistant to pests and diseases. They can tolerate these things. Even we never apply fertilizers. So they survive in low fertile soil and they can compete very well with other plants like weeds. So these wild plants have very good characters. But cultivated plants, we have to look after them. So they can't tolerate these conditions. අපි කැලේ තියෙන wild relatives වලට පුළුවන් මේ extreme conditions වලට ඔරොත්තු දෙන්න. ඒ වුණාට අපි cultivate කරපු plants වලට ඒ වගේ දෙයකට ඔරොත්තු දෙන්න බෑ. So cultivated plants are artificially selected by human to suit human needs. Throughout the our history, we select the best plants out of wild plants, and among those plants also we practice selection. Then we develop present day crops. Therefore, how if you want to improve present day crops, we need to conserve the gene pool of these crop wild relative. So if you want to improve rice variety, sometimes you may have to go and get the correct character, pest and disease resistant character from the wild rice. So conservation of wild gene pool is important. අපිට අද පාවිච්චි කරන භෝග වැඩි දියුණු කරගන්න ඕන නම් අපිට සමහරලාට වනගත භෝග දර්ශ වලින් ලක්ෂණ ලබා ගන්න වෙනවා. ඒ නිසා ඒවා සංරක්ෂණය කිරීම වැදගත්. Okay, so what are the importance of crop wild relatives? We can mention 2 points. First, to improve existing crops, we need crop wild relatives. And secondly, as a source of food, because still we eat certain wild plants as source of food, like this Dioscorea, wild yams. It's very popular even in Sri Lanka, because most of these wild plants have antioxidant properties. Those properties are good to fight against diabetics, cancer-like illnesses. So still for these things, there's a very high demand. And particularly these wild plants have good carbohydrates for the body. But if you eat too much of rice, it is not good because carbohydrate can be directly absorbed. But here, the form is good. In other words, it has low glycemic index. I'm not sure whether you have heard about that term. So they are most of these wild varieties, their food quality is good for our health compared to improved varieties. So please remember the importance of crop wild relatives. We can think about 2 points: to improve the existing crops and as a source of food. Right. So this is an example for some crops and their wild relatives. As an example, rubber is originated in Brazil, coffee in Africa, cocoa in Latin America, mango in our part of the world, South Asia, including Sri Lanka, groundnut, Latin America. These are some examples. You don't have to remember this, right? Right. Now with that, let me move to the centers of origin of cultivated plants. But what is the originated place of cultivated plants? දැන් අපි කතා කරන්න යන්නේ අපි වගා කරන භෝග ඇති වුණේ කොහෙද කියන එක. If you look at the total number of flowering plants in the world, we have about 400,000 flowering plants. Out of that, about 35,000 are cultivated. And out of this, about 7,000 are crop species. Ornamental plants, we have about 28,000. So if you look at these cultivated plants, crop plants and ornamental plants, these plants are not distributed evenly throughout the world, but they are concentrated on certain areas. As an example, if you look at wheat, you can't find wheat, Tiringu, in Sri Lanka. You can find wheat in only certain countries, not in Sri Lanka. But mango, you can find mango in our region, but you cannot find mango in certain other countries like Europe. So these cultivated plants are not evenly distributed around the world. They are concentrated in certain parts of the world. Cultivated plants are concentrated on certain parts of the world. අපි වගා කරන භෝග ලෝකෙ පුරාම සමානව ව්‍යාප්ත වෙලා නැහැ. සමහර ප්‍රදේශවල තමයි වැඩිපුර තියෙන්නේ. දකින්න හම්බෙන්නේ. So a scientist called Vavilov, a Russian scientist, in 1926, he studied about this. He was curious about how these crop plants were originated, and he wanted to find out the place. So he studied extensively on cultivated plants. He traveled throughout the world in a ship, and he looked at the cultivated plants. Then this Russian scientist Vavilov proposed that the areas of origin of cultivated plants were the regions where wild relatives occurred. So what is the area of origin of cultivated plants? Those are the places where wild relatives are occurred. ඒ කියන්නේ centers of origin of cultivated plants කියලා කියන්නේ මේ wild relatives තියෙන ප්‍රදේශ. So crop plants were originated in the places where you can find crop wild relatives. So crop plants are also not domesticated in a random manner. But there are certain regions where domestication started. Because during long time ago, about how many years, more than 100 years ago, so during that time, plants were not distributed, I mean, throughout the world, but they were concentrated, especially cultivated plants. So he found these cultivated plants very close to the places where these plants were originated, or where you can find the crop wild relatives. So he identified actually 8 centers. Vavilov identified 8 centers in the world, and he named them as centers of origin of cultivated plants. You can see this map. In this map, you can see these centers. You can identify 8 centers. You don't have to remember this map, right? This is just for your information. Right, these are the centers, but you have to remember these centers by heart. These are the 8 different centers of origin of cultivated plants. කට්ටියට මැප් එක එහෙම මතක තියාගන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. හැබැයි මේ සෙන්ටර්ස් අට මතක තියාගන්න ඕනේ. What are these centers? South Mexican and Central American Center, South American Center, third one Mediterranean Center, මධ්‍ය ධරණී ප්‍රදේශයේ තියෙන්නේ, Middle East Center, Ethiopia, Central Asiatic Center, Indian Center including Sri Lanka, and finally Chinese Center. Those are the 8 centers of origin of cultivated plants. Please remember the names of these centers. The centers අට මතක තියාගන්න ඕනේ. And if you look at the table given in the book, in this table there are 3 columns. First one gives the name of the center, next one location, third one examples for the plant originated in that particular center. So I told you have to remember the name of the center, South Mexican and Central American Center. But location, you don't have to remember. This is just for your information. This center is further divided into two locations were considered under this center: South Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and Peruvian Ecuadorian region. So both regions were considered under this center. So remember the name of the center, and these are the example, right? Examples of grains and legumes, vegetables, fruits, plantation crops, root tubers, vegetables, fruit and miscellaneous. Examples are given, but you don't have to remember all the examples. Remember only the highlighted names: pepper and cocoa and tobacco, crops related to plantations, right? Remember only these names: pepper, cocoa and tobacco. ඔකට්ටියට මම මේ ටේබල් එකක් දීලා තිනවා. ටේබල් එකේ සෙන්ටර් එකේ නම මතක තියාගන්න. සෙන්ටර්ස් 8ක් තියෙනවා කියලා කිව්වා. සෙන්ටර් එකේ නමයි මේ highlight කරලා තියෙන plants තුනේ නම් විතරක් ඒකට මතක තියාගත්තාම ඇති. අනිත් ඒවා information එකට විතරයි මතක තියාගන්න අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Pepper, cocoa and tobacco, right? Next, South American Center. It include Chile and Brazilian clusters. As an example, rubber is originated in South American Center in Brazil, in the Amazon forest, right? So remember the Brazil, rubber. Under South American Center, only rubber. Mediterranean Center, in Sinhala we call Madhya Dharani Pradesh, which include Greece, Turkey, Spain-like countries, olive. Then Ethiopia, coffee. Central Asiatic Center, carrot. Indian Center, rice, sugarcane, coconut, clove, nutmeg, black pepper. Sugarcane, coconut, clove, nutmeg, black pepper. Final center, Chinese center, radish. Okay, so if I ask a question, conservation of wild gene pool is important. Why? Can you tell me? Why should we conserve wild gene pool or crop wild relatives? You can look at the book and answer.
To improve the existing crops and as a source of food.
Right, very good. So I'm going to ask similar questions during the exams, right? So very simple, straightforward questions. Okay. Before I move to the second chapter, I will summarize the first chapter, very easy. You have to remember only these things. If I ask what are crop wild relatives, you should be able to answer. Then what is domestication? You should be able to answer. Then thirdly, importance of conservation of crop wild relatives or wild gene pool. Then you should know the meaning of centers of origin of cultivated plants. What are the centers? And you should be able to name 8 centers and examples I just mentioned important examples. Only those things should be remember for the exam, right? Other things may be for your knowledge, right? Okay, is it clear? Do you have any other do you need any explanation or anything else from first chapter? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Right, thank you. Am I doing too fast or is the speed okay? මම ගොඩක් හයියෙන් කරනවද නැත්නම් මේ ස්පීඩ් එක හොඳයිද? Right, okay.
Fine, sir. No.
Right. Okay, thank you. Give your feedback because I should do this so that you can understand. Right. Okay, right. Chapter 2, plant classification and the diversity of plant kingdom. Plant classification and the diversity of the plant kingdom. So these are the ILOs. Explain the importance of naming plants according to a set of rules and regulations. At the end of the lecture, you should know this. Why should we name plants according to a set of rules and regulations? Because there are some rules and regulations. Then you should be able to describe different taxonomic levels. And you should be able to write a botanical name in a correct way, because that's very important. You might work as any government department, private sector, or as a planter, but if you find a new plant, you may have to write a report or whatever it is. So always giving a botanical name is important rather than giving the common name. Then finally, describe the diversity of angiosperms. Right, plant taxonomy. Taxonomy deals with classification. The person who works on this discipline is called taxonomist. A person deals with plantation is called planter. A person dealing with agriculture is called agriculturist. Likewise, taxonomist. The new term is used for taxonomy. It is systematics, plant systematics. You know that we have about 400,000 different plants in the world, and many plants are, some plants are identified. So 400,000 plants are already identified, but there are still many new plants people identify globally. So when you come across with a new plant, how do you know that it is a new plant? It's very difficult, right? Because we have 400,000 plants. So how do you find that somebody else has discovered this earlier or not? It's very difficult, right? So when we have a proper classification system, we can easily identify a new plant, right? So this is an example for plant identified in Sri Lanka, a Kekatia plant. I hope you all know Kekatia, Aponogeton. It was identified recently, about 5-6 years ago in Colombo area, right? So still we identify new plants. So when we identify new plants, we have to give a botanical name. Classification of plants. So throughout the human history, we use different methods to classify plants. So initially, we consider growth cycle. You know, we have 3 different categories: annuals, biennials, and perennials. Annual means these plants complete their life cycle within a year or within a season. Biennials complete their life cycle within 2 years or within 2 seasons. Perennials, more than 2 seasons or years, right? So based on that, we classify plants, but it is not a good method. So it was people moved from that very basic method. As an example, if you look at carrot plant, if you grow carrot in Sri Lanka, you can never collect seeds because we need 2 clear-cut seasons, but we don't have such a variation in our season. So even at Norelia, carrot plant never produce seeds. So we have to import carrot seeds. So it's very expensive. In the first season, carrot plant grow and form the tube. Then we usually harvest it. But if there is another season, it will produce flowers and seeds. So, but in Sri Lanka, it is not going to happen as we don't have a clear-cut seasons, right? So it is a biennial plant. They complete their life cycle within 2 years. Sorry, within 2 years, right? Not in two, sorry, in 2 seasons, not in 2 years, right? In 2 seasons, right? Okay. Then we look, we had another system, herbs, shrubs, trees. That system is also didn't work properly because, as an example, tea. When you maintain a tea plant in a plantation, you maintain it as a shrub. But if you allow it to grow into their natural form, you can consider it as a small tree, right? So there are certain disagreement overlaps. So that was also a not good system. So later people classify plants into a ascending series of different categories. ශාක වර්ගීකරණය කරන්න මුලදීන් පටන් ගත්තේ වාර්ෂික, ඒකවාර්ෂික, ද්විවාර්ෂික, බහුවාර්ෂික කියලා. ඒක එච්චර හොඳ ක්‍රමයක් නෙවෙයි. ඊට පස්සේ ඒ කට්ටිය බැලුවා පැලෑටි පඳුරු ගස් කියලා බෙදන්න. ඒකත් එච්චර හොඳ එකක් නෙවෙයි. ඊට පස්සේ මිනිස්සු ශාක වර්ගීකරණය කෙරුවා විවිධ කැටගරීස් වලට බෙදලා. අපි ඒක තමයි දැන් බලන්න යන්නේ, right? So right. Levels of classification. Before that, let me, if I ask you, what is the importance of classification? Why should we classify plants? As an example, if you visit a library and if you want to find a book on rubber, so you can go to the reception, you can look at the section where you can find plantation crops. Under that, you may get tea, rubber, coconut, coffee, cocoa, like. So you can find out the exact place, maybe 639.5.5. Likewise, you can find the correct shelf. Then you can go and grab the book. Within few minutes, you can find out the required book. It is so easy. Why? Because books are classified in the library. Imagine if all the books are piled up in a table in a random manner. Can you identify a book? No. Can you find out a book? No. It's very difficult. Why? Because books are not classified. They put here and there. So you have to spend about couple of months to find the required book. So to avoid that, in libraries, books are classified. So it will be very easy to identify a book. And if you want to find a new book, if it is not in the library, you can easily recognize it. Similarly, in the case of plants also, once the plants are classified, you can easily find out the details of the plants. You can find out the location, distribution, their properties, their flowering behavior, morphology, everything can be found. Even now they are in format of books, so you don't have to visit. If you name a plant, within few minutes time, you can refer the correct book. The plant may occurring in forest in a reticle area, but still you can find all the information, flowering time, flower color, fruiting time, everything can be easily get because plants are classified in a particular order. So let's look at the levels of classification. Domains. Animals, All are classified under 3 larger groups called domains. There are 3 domains: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. Those are the 3 domains: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. Please remember these names: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. So the plants belong to the domain eukarya. විවිධ වර්ගීකරණ සිස්ටම්ස් තියෙනවා. දැන් අන්තිම භාවිතා කරන සිස්ටම් එකේ ලෝකයේ ජීවීන් කොටස් 3කට බෙදලා තියෙනවා. මේ තමයි ඒ තුන. ඩොමේන්ස් 3කට. plants අයිති වෙන්නේ domain eukarya. Under the domain, next higher rank is the kingdom. Under the domain, next higher rank is called kingdom. Right. This is called hierarchical classification. Hierarchical classification because if you look at a company, in a private company, you have a CEO, Chief Executive Officer. Under the CEO, you have about 5 directors. Under directors, general managers, managers, right? Likewise, there's an order. Similarly, in plants also, it is like that. Domain is on top. Under the domain, you have kingdoms. Under that, divisions, class, order, family, genus, species. So this is the domain. Under domain, you have large number of plants. Domains are divided into few kingdoms. Few kingdoms are divided into divisions, classes, order, like that. Okay, so if you look at if you go down the system, number of organisms decreased. As an example, in a family, you may have about, say in Sri Lanka, in a certain family, you may have about, say, 100 plants. But under family, you may get about how many genuses? Maybe 20 or 15 genuses. Under single genus, you have maybe 5 plants. So when you go down the system, number of organisms in each level decreases. And the characters become more specific. Characters of a species, unique characters of species is totally different from unique characters of the other species. Right? As an example, if you look at jack and breadfruit, jack is called Artocarpus heterophilus. Breadfruit is called Artocarpus altilis. Both belong to the same family Moraceae. Same genus, Artocarpus. But those are 2 species. And they share common characters. Like all these 2 plants both plants have latex. Then number of stamens in the flower. There are certain common characters. But there are specific characters. Like as an example, if you look at jackfruit, you know its fruit is totally different than breadfruit, right? And so each species have unique or specific characters. So you can identify them, right? So these are the order: domain, kingdom, division, class, order, family, genus, species. You have to remember this by heart, this order. So 8 major ranks were identified. And if you want to increase the number, you can increase this number by adding subcategories. As an example, under the family, you can add subfamily, right? Under species, you can add subspecies. Or you can add varieties. Likewise, this number could be increased by adding subcategories. Within the species, if there you find variations, you can put them into subspecies or varieties. In most of the cultivated plants, we have varieties, different varieties, right? So if you look at closely related species are categorized under genus. Closely related genuses are classified under one family. Closely related families are grouped in an order. Likewise, there's a relationship. When you go up, you can find relationship. As an example, if you know the characters of a family, all the members of the genus and species share the same characters. As an example, I told you that in Moraceae family, Artocarpus, that is jackfruit and breadfruit, they have latex. So it's a character of this family. So all these members have that character. Okay. So, right, I told you that I cannot record, right? Karuna Tilaka, he is asking whether I can share the recorded version. If I'm going to record it, I will not be able to start the second session, right? So I told you, if you want to record, I will allow you because I received few requests, I approved. You can do it by yourself. If I do it, I will not be able to start my next class because it will take long time because this is not a very short 1 hour lecture, right? Probably you, Karuna Tilaka, might have come to the class a bit late, right? Okay, IUCN, right? Then when you look at plants, if you find a new plant, how do you know that it is a new plant? Based on the classification system, there is a method you can find it is a new plant. So how do you name it? Can you give any name? No, you can't do. Can you give a Sinhala name, English name? No. You can give, but it will not be acceptable for everybody. So there is a book or regulations. All these things are written in a book called, or there's a rules called governed by international, it is known as International Code of Botanical Nomenclature, ICBN. This is an internationally agreed book, rule book, so that you have to do it according to this guideline. And in this guideline, 8 major ranks were identified, right? Under that, you have to classify plants based on the rules given in this book. So remember the name by heart, ICBN, International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. අපිට අලුතෙන් ගහක් හම්බෙලා නම් කරන්න ඕන නම් අපිට නම් කරන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි මේ නීති පද්ධතියක් තියෙනවා මේ පොතේ ඒ අනුව තමයි ඒක කරන්න ඕනේ. Right? So anybody can refer it. It's available in the web. So as an example, you may find a new plant in Sri Lanka today. Another person may find another same plant, maybe in Pakistan, right? But can we give two names for two different names for single plant, one in Sri Lanka and one in Pakistan? No, you can give, but when it comes to the publication, you can recognize it as a mistake. So there's a method to find out. There's a method to find out who name the plant first. So first name will be acceptable. ඒ කියන්නේ ගහක් රටවල් දෙක එකම ගහ නම් කෙරුවොත් හිතන්න මාසක වෙනසකින් පළවෙනිටම නම දීලා පබ්ලිෂ් කරපු කෙනාගේ එක තමයි අපි පිළිගන්නේ. So there are if there is a controversy, all these things are given in this book. You can refer it, right? If you refer it, you don't have to refer it. If you refer it, you can find all the information. So all the plants are named and classified according to this book. So there will be no confusion among scientists throughout the world, not in Sri Lanka, throughout the world. Right? This is the hierarchical dendrogram representing different taxa, domain, kingdom, division, class, order, family, genus, species, right? This is a hierarchical system, just like a company profile. Okay. So this is the example that I mentioned, Moraceae family. We have 3 species out of the large number of species, these 3 species are given here. Artocarpus altilis is breadfruit, Artocarpus nobilis is Valdale, Heteropilus is the jackfruit. So all 3 plants belong to the genus Artocarpus, but 3 different species because they have different, if you look at leaf shapes, they are different. Fruit size, different. Fruit shape, different, right? So there are certain differences. So we put them into 3 species, but all 3 belong to the same genus because they share lot of common characters. Similarly, family Anacardiaceae, mango, cashew, badulla, all belong to that family. Family Euphorbiaceae has rubber, cassava, candor, all belong to this family. You don't have to remember these names by heart, right? Only you have to remember how many different taxa and their order, right? As an example, in the exam, I can ask, identify different taxonomic ranks in either ascending order or descending. I can ask like that. So you have to remember not only names in a particular order. විභාගයේදී මට අහන්න පුළුවන් ආරෝහණ පිළිවෙලට මේ ටික ලියන්න. නැත්නම් අවරෝහණ පිළිවෙලට ලියන්න කියලා, right? So you have to remember them by heart. Nomenclature. You might think that, right, why can't we use common names? You can use common names in Sinhala, in Tamil or English. You can use it, but they give different problems. These are discussed in the book as well. They are indefinite. What do you mean by indefinite? For a single plant, even in Sinhala, as an example, for the jack tree, if you go to Matala, they will call Herali. But if you go to Matale, they will call Kos. I don't know. If you go to Rajarata area, there might be another name, right? So there could be different name for single species. Then for 2 different plants, sometimes people use a single name, 2 different plants. As an example, there's a plant called Badulla. That is the Sinhala name, which include 8 different species. You can find 1 species in Gallamatara area, another species in Singaraja area, another species in Horton Plains, Noreli area, totally different one in the Vayamba area, another species in Rajarata area. Likewise, we have 8, but all the 8 semicarpus species in Sinhala we call Badulla. So no, we cannot distinguish. So they are indefinite. Then they are restricted to 1 language. When I call Badulla, you might have heard it, but a Tamil student may wonder what is that plant, because I told you the name in Sinhala. But if you go to India, America, UK, Sinhala, Tamil words are not acceptable, only English words. But if you go to Spain, they don't speak English. So even English is not acceptable. Once again, he requests, you can't send you record requests, because I have accepted few requests. I don't know whether there's a limit, right? Because if you send it, I can approve it. Okay. Because I'm not recording, but I received certain requests from students, right? I approved it, but I don't know whether there's a limit. Okay. People who got the approval can share with others, right? You can put that message in your group and you can share this recorded version. So the scientific, right, first one, indefinite. Second one, restricted to 1 language. Third one, not regulated by any constituent authority. So as an example, when we give a name, at present, say common names, for the jackfruit in Sinhala or Tamil, you can tell any name, right? But nobody is going to control. If you like to have your name, you can give it, but you can call it. But will it acceptable for everybody? Even your region, it will not be accepted. The country level, international internationally not acceptable because it is not regulated by certain rules and regulations. So due to these three constraints, remember these constraints, due to these three constraints, we have to give scientific name for a plant. So given scientific name have, for given plant have only a single scientific name. ඕනෑම ගහකට තියෙන්න පුළුවන් එක විද්‍යාත්මක නමක් විතරයි. දෙකක් තියෙන්න බෑ. දෙකක් තිබ්බොත් අපි පිළිගන්නේ කලින්ම දුන්න නම. Right? If there is a controversy, the book has given, ICBN, International Code has given instructions how to avoid the problem. Right? So everything is clear because we have regulation. Okay? Now you know, giving common names are not going to work. So you have to use scientific name. Even when you write a report, for your easiness, you may use a common name, but scientifically, you have to give the botanical name, and within brackets, you can give the Sinhala name, and thereafter you can refer the English name or Tamil name. Then thereafter, you can refer the common name. At the first instance, it is very important to give the correct scientific name. So, to give botanical name. He proposed to give two names for a plant or an animal, two parts. Generic name, or we call genus, and the specific name, or we call specific epithet. So when you write the genus name, it is not, first letter is always capitalized. But species name, it is not capitalized. So the two words together contribute to the botanical name. When you write a botanical name, you have to either underline or you have to italicize. As an example, Hevea is genus name of the rubber. You have to underline or you have to use italic font. This is the correct way of writing a botanical name. Cocos nucifera is coconut. Generic name start with capital letter C. Cocos nucifera. Specific name start with the simple letter, and either you have to underline or italicize. So it is italicize, right? Here you can see Hevea brasiliensis. Capital, all letters simple. Capital, start with the capital. Camellia sinensis, all letters simple. You know about this, but please remember it. So when you give names, you have to give names. You can give names in different ways, like Dipterocarpus silenicus. This is horror plant. Horror plant. If you look at the horror plant, this was originated in Sri Lanka. Earlier, this was known, our country was known as Ceylon. So, as it was found only in Ceylon, they gave Silenicus, not Ceylon. You can't just give Ceylon, the name Ceylon. Why? You have to, according to that rules, you have to Latinize the name. So there's a different form. You don't have to know it, but so we put it as Silenicus, not Ceylon. Then this one, I'm just telling you some examples. Shoria, this is called Dun. In single name is Dun. Shoria macrophylla. It has large leaves. Macro means large. Phyla means leaves. Large leaves. So this name resembles the nature of the leaves. This name resembles the location, country. If you look at this one, Apodageton dasanayake. I have just shown you a picture. This plant was discovered in Sri Lanka about 6-7 years ago. This was named to honor a professor, a great professor, Professor Dasanayaka, who have done a lot of things to this field. Dasanayaka, his name is Dasanayaka, but you can't tell it as Dasanayaka because you have to Latinize the name. So Dasanayake. You might wonder why these names are a little bit awkward, because we have to Latinize the name, Dasanayake. This is how you name it, right? So when you write a botanical name again and again, as an example, if you write Apodageton dasanayake, name again and again in a text. Second time, when you write it, you have to put it in this way, A. Dasanayake. You don't have to give full name again and again. You can write A. Dasanayake. As an example, when you write your name, Amal Ranasinghe. First, for the first instance, you can write Amal Ranasinghe. Then thereafter, you can write A. Ranasinghe. Right? Okay. You don't have to remember this, right? This is an example for giving botanical name, binomial names for roses. So name is Rosa sinensis. You know what is the domain, what is the kingdom, these things. So we classified it according to rules and regulations. Then there's another thing called author citation. It is given in the book as well. When you write the botanical name, you have to indicate the name of the first person who named the plant after the botanical name. You call it author citation. As an example, most of the plants occurring in the world were named by a great scientist, Carlos Linnaeus, long time ago. So if you look at most of the plants, you can find Cocos nucifera. He is the one who named this plant first. If you look at Camellia sinensis, that is tea, it was first named by Linnaeus, L. Dot. But later on, Kunz, this person, changed the name. It was belonged to not Camellia earlier, separate genus. Now Kunz has put it into Camellia genus. So Camellia sinensis, Kunz put his name, but this name came under the brackets. You don't have to know about these things, but I'm just telling. Remember only that you have to give correct author citation. That is important. Because this is just like your birth certificate. If you have your birth certificate, if I have your birth certificate, I can tell you everything about you. As an example, if I have the birth certificate of Udit Saumya, I can tell the place of birth, date, your parents, grandparents, all this information can be find very easily through the birth certificate. Just like that, in plants also, if you know the author citation, you can find all the details. Date of the first naming of this particular plant, then if somebody changed, date and where, all the details can be found. And this is I'm not going to talk about the details, right? Therefore, when you write in a report, not only the botanical name, for the first instance, give the author citation as well. That is very important. So in the third year, you will do a project, research project, and when you use a plant name, any plant name, even tea, give the botanical name. That is very important, right? If you look at this one, this is an example. This is the violet flower water lily. It doesn't have any botanical name, and it was hybrid. We identified it as hybrid, so we have given a name, Impia into Erange. Then as our team named this plant, we gave our name behind this, right? So you can give your name. If you have to give your name, so you can, anybody can identify. In this one, it was named, not named previously, so we gave our son's name. Is Eranga. Instead of telling Eranga, you have to Latinize. So we give it in this format, right? Once again, water lilies, Nymphia nauchali, we identified varieties in Sri Lanka. So variety, VAR dot versicolor. This was earlier named by a person called Sims. So his name came under the brackets. Then we put our names. So the authors should use their names after the botanical name. This is another example, where local example. Right. So now let me give you a few examples for the importance of correct identification of plants and importance of providing botanical names. Few examples, then you will realize the importance. අපි දැන් බලමු ඇයි ගහකට උද්භිද විද්‍යාත්මක නමක් දීමේ වැදගත්කම සහ ඒ වගේම තමයි හරි නම දීමේ වැදගත්කමත් වැදගත්. වැරදි නම දුන්නොත් මොකද වෙන්නේ කියලා. හරියට අඳුරගන්න එකේ වැදගත්කම මොකක්ද කියලා අපි ඉක්මනට බලමු. Okay, if you look at in Sinhala we call kaha, English turmeric, Tamil manchal, curcuma longa, botanically known as curcuma longa. In Sinhala we have large about 5 different names in different places. So if you refer bin kaha, nobody will understand because majority of us know kaha. So we might think that this could be a new plant. So giving Sinhala name, you can see common names. There are a lot of common names. It doesn't work. Then if you look at this one picture, there's a plant called in Sinhala, sorry about from Tamil students, I know only Sinhala word, Navahandi. That is the common name. This is the Navahandi plant we used to grow in our home gardens. It has latex, and there's another plant on top of mara trees, hanging plant. Which one is the correct Navahandi? Can anybody tell me? Navahandi, it's a medicinal plant. Huh? First one or second one?
Second one, sir.
Right, very good. Second one. But majority of us are familiar with this one. We grow them in our home gardens. Now it is not very popular. It has latex. So this is the correct Navahandi. The reason for showing this is, long time ago, Ayurvedic physician prescribed some plants for a patient approach him. The patient has certain problem in his hand. So the Ayurvedic physician recommended to mix certain plants, leaves, palm plants, and asked to apply on his skin. And one plant was Navahandi. So the patient had Navahandi, this plant in his home. So he used this plant to prepare the medicine and applied. So ultimately the patient had burning injuries, end up with burning injuries. It was an issue. So Veda Mahatya knew that Navahandi refers to this plant. This is the medicinal plant with medicinal value. But ordinary person, ordinary people, we use this plant in our home garden and we also call it Navahandi. If you look at botanical name, this belongs to the Cactaceae family, cactus family, Rhipsalis basifera. This is belong to the Euphorbiaceae family, Euphorbia tirucalli. So you see, incorrect identification can lead to problems. And if the Veda Mahatya tell instead of Navahandi Rhipsalis basifera, then this would have avoided. But nobody's using botanical names. So traditional Ayurvedic practitioners, they never use botanical names. So now you know the importance of using botanical name, right? So ultimately we blame our traditional medicines because sometimes we use incorrect plants. This is an example. So giving botanical names is important rather than giving common names. Then there was another story. This is about Rathanun. There was an Indian Prime Minister called Jawaharlal Nehru. Prime Minister Nehru visited Sri Lanka sometimes back. I can't remember the year. I think even I was small. He visited I think, Ayurvedic Institute, probably Bandaranaike Ayurvedic Institute. I don't know whether it's Gampaha or Rajagiri, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. But during the visit, our people gave Rathandun or Santanan album, Pterocarpus santillinianis plant for him to plant, to commemorate his visit, to remember his visit, to honor him. Our people gave Rathandun seedling. After 10-15 years, they realized that it was a Gammalu, not Rathandun, because they identified it incorrectly. Rathandun is Pterocarpus santillinianis. This is the Rathandun. It is very valuable plant, just like gold. But Pterocarpus marsupium is Gammalu. It is commonly available. So it was a mistake. It was realized long time after, several years. Right? So correct identification is important. This is another example. For the long time from Sri Lanka, people smuggled Valla patta, or we call Gyneriopsis valla. our custom people, they didn't recognize it because they just export wood parts stating a different name. I don't know the name, different names, but even from the wood parts, you can identify the plant. But if they declare the botanical name as Gyrinopsis valla, they would have avoided it. But there was a problem, right? So giving botanical names is important. Then another example, this is called Deer Habarala in Sinhala. It is abundant in paddy fields. It has a reddish, purple reddish, sorry, bluish purple color flowers. There are two species, Monocoria virginalis and Monocoria hastata. And if you look at the Monocoria virginalis, sometimes back a patient came to Ragam Hospital, and that patient had vomiting and features of yellow fever. So when a patient visit a doctor, doctor usually asks some questions, symptoms, as well as they ask, what did you eat last night? That is also a question. So by looking at the symptoms, doctor treated the patient for yellow fever, but it was not cured. And when doctor asked, what did you eat last night? Patient disclosed the things he ate previous night. He drank kanji made out of this plant, Monocoria or Dihabarala. And this plant is considered as, in Sinhala, we call Diva Usuak for diabetic patients and other illnesses. They eat this kanji, katha, made out of this plant. But if you look at this plant has three groups, varieties. One group has red color pigments and they are toxic. So even Veda Mahaturu, they don't know because it was not recognized. But this has more, if you look at the leaves, it had more leaf hairs. Very rough compared to other two, right? So there's a clear-cut difference, right? So still it is not recognized by Veda Mahaturu. So when somebody asks, if you find, collect the wrong variety, we will end up with a problem, right? Okay. So another example, I was involved in this study about, now it's in 2010, long time ago. For 30 years, we recognize this plant as the national flower of Sri Lanka, and we call it Nilmanil. But if you look at this, is it blue in color? We call this in Sinhala Nilmanil, English blue water lily, in Tamil Nilotpalam. All Nilotpalam, blue, nil, manil, nil, color referred to the color of the flower. But this is not blue in color. But as a nation, entire nation, for 30 years, we called it Nilmanil. But this is the correct Nilmanil. We found it through a research. But traditionally, this was known. But later on, people recognize this as Nilmanil. Great mistake by people attached to the botanical gardens. So this is the correct Nilmanil, right? So this led to the this discovery led to the change of the national flower from this flower to this flower. This is the correct flower. So during that time, a lot of newspaper articles, TVs, I wonder whether you can remember, the wide publicity was given, Nilmanil මොන පාටද කියලා. අවුරුදු 24ක් ජාතික පුෂ්පය වැරද්දාගෙන හිටියා අපි, right? If you look at our website, government web portal also incorrectly use this plant and use word Nilmanil. Not only that, even look at the school books, Nilmanil, and use the wrong flower. We issued a stamp, even books by botanical gardens, everywhere we use incorrect flower, right? It was a mistake, right? So correct identification important. This is the last example. We discovered a new aquatic plant called Laginandra, a Ketela plant. So we name it to honor our university, Vayamba University. So you can't give the word Vayamba, but we give Latinize it, Vayambe. It was a new discovery and we named to honor our university, right? So we named it based on that code of botanical nomenclature code, IABN, International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. We have to follow this, right? Okay. So those are examples. You don't have to remember those examples, but convince you the importance of correct identification and giving proper botanical names. I gave you a few examples, right? With that, let me move to the classification systems. We use 3 different classification systems. First one, earlier we use Linnaeus time. Carlos Linnaeus used artificial classification system. In that system, we use only the morphological characters like flower color, leaf shape, leaf size, number of petals, number of stamens, those features. Those are morphological characters. Only based on morphological characters. That system was known as artificial classification. But later, people found a lot of information from other fields like chemistry, phytochemistry. Then chemists look at the chemistry of the plants. Then anatomy, people cut flowers, they dissect flowers, dissect stems and find microscopic details. So they find microscopic details and chemistry, etc. Then they propose another system, natural system, proposed by a scientist called Bentham and Hooker. So we shift from artificial classification system to natural system. And we use this for long time. But later, with the advancement of molecular biology, we shifted to another system called phylogenetic system. This is based on evolutionary history or evolutionary relationship. This was suggested by Hutchinson. So presently we accept this classification system, phylogenetic classification system. අපි වර්ගීකරණ ක්‍රම තුනක් පාවිච්චි කරුවා, artificial, natural. ඒ දෙකම හොඳ නැති නිසා දැන් අලුත් ඉන්ෆර්මේෂන් එක අපි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ පරිණාමික බන්ධුතා පදනම් කරගත් classification system එකක්. We called it phylogenetic classification system. This is world globally accepted system, right? Right, the description is given here. So this is phylogenetic system based on evolutionary ancestry. We looked at our parents, they look at our grandparents, great-great-grandparents. Likewise, we look at the history and classify plants, right? As an example, in phylogenetic classification, this is an example. If you look at species 1, 2, and 3, all 3 species came at this point. Species 3 evolved in a separate line. 1 and 2 evolved in a separate line. Then at this point, 1 evolved towards this point, 2 evolved in this line. So if you ask which 2 species are most commonly related, 1, 2, 1, 3, or 2, 3, can you tell me? Anybody? Out of species 1, 2, and 3, which 2 are closely related?
1 and 2.
Yes, very good, Isuru. 1 and 2, because both share a common ancestor. So they are closely related. But they have a relationship to the species 3 as well, but it has a long distance. So these 2 are closely related. So if you use the phylogenetic system, you can tell, right, which 2 species are closely related. So closely related species are put into single genus. Closely related genuses are put into single family. Likewise, we develop the classification system further using phylogenetic classification. Now I hope you understood it. සිංහලෙනුත් මම හිතන්නේ ඔකට තේරෙන්න ඇති. මේ ස්පීසිස් තුන ගත්තොත් 1යි 2යිට පොදු නෑයා ඉන්නේ හිස්ටරි එක ගත්තොත් එක තැනින් ඇති වෙලා තියෙනවා. එතකොට මේ දෙන්න වඩා ළඟින් නෑදෑ වෙනවා. ඒ මත පදනම් වෙලා තමයි අලුත් ක්ලාසිෆිකේෂන් in phylogenetic classification. Another simple example, if you look at these animals, during evolution of animals, mammals evolved separately, rats, human being, elephants, monkeys. Then out of reptiles, turtles separated first, lizards and snake, then crocodiles, then birds separated like this. So if you look at this one, you can tell birds and crocodiles are closely related than lizards and snakes. And these three are closely related to turtles than mammals. Those things can be recognized when we use phylogenetic classification. Right. So with that, let me move to the diversity of the plant kingdom. If you look at the history, early we use two system classification, plants and animals, right? We put all these things into two groups, plants and animals. You might have learned this system, probably, I don't know. Then people recognize six kingdom system: eubacteria, archaebacteria, protista, fungi, plantae, animalia. And plants belong to kingdom plantae. This was the next step. Then people shift into six kingdom classification system. You don't have to remember these things. This is just for information. But now you know, in the new system, we identify three domains: archaea, bacteria, and eukarya. And if you look at the domain archaea, all the primitive animals we call prokaryotic, pragnyastic jivin, belong to domain archaea, like blue-green algae and other certain bacteria belong to the domain archaea. Then domain bacteria, once again, bacteria are also prokaryotic. All the prokaryotic things, other bacteria belong to this group, right? You don't have to remember, examples, right? Only remember the name, domain archaea. You don't have to remember these things, right? This is just for your information, so I'm not going to describe it. Domain bacteria also include bacteria, cyanobacteria and other gram-negative bacteria. This is an example. You don't have to remember. Domain eukarya. This now include domain eukarya include higher plants and higher animals or eukaryotes, न्यष्टिक जीवी. And it can be put into kingdom fungi. Yeast and other larger fungi belong to the kingdom fungi. Then kingdom plantae or plants, and kingdom animalia, which include all the animals, right? So in the latest classification, now you know, we divide animals into, all the organisms into three domains: archaea, bacteria, and eukarya. Archaea and bacteria both contain prokaryotic organisms, primitive organisms, pragnyastic jivin. Nyastic jivin, or higher animals and plants, belong to the domain eukarya. So domain eukarya is again divided into how many kingdoms? Three kingdoms. What are those kingdoms? Kingdom fungi. Domain eukarya divided into three: kingdom fungi, kingdom plantae, and kingdom animalia. Right? So now we recognize only three kingdoms. Remember, earlier we recognized two kingdoms, then six kingdoms. Now we recognize three kingdoms, three domains, and domain eukarya include three kingdoms. Right? Please remember the names of these three kingdoms: kingdom fungi, kingdom plantae, and kingdom animalia. අපි දැන් සලකන්නේ three domain system එක. three domain system එකේ three kingdom system එක. domain eukarya කියන එකේ තියෙනවා kingdom තුනක්, fungi, plantae, and animalia. ඒක තමයි අපි දැන් පිළිගන්නේ. Okay. If you look at kingdom plantae, This is just for information, right? You don't have to remember by heart these things. Earliest animals existed in the water. So about 500 million ago, all the plants, fungi, sorry, algae were there. They were restricted in water, confined to water. So water has given all the facility, structural support. Water is available. Then transpiration was not a problem. Water loss is not an issue. But gradually these plants moved to the land, and land plants were developed. So these plants, water loss is a big issue. So they develop certain mechanisms or structures to prevent water loss. Like they develop cuticles, they develop stomata, so they can control water loss. Likewise, certain systems were developed and adapted to terrestrial life. You don't have to remember these things, just for your information, right? Then plants become photosynthetic and they produce oxygen. So what are the characteristic features of these plants? They protect the embryo. Higher plants, they protect the embryo. Embryo is well protected. If you look at a mango embryo, seed is well protected by flesh. Right. So based on that, you have to remember this classification. All the plants. Now we are not going to discuss animals and fungi. I'm going to concentrate on domain Eukarya, kingdom Plantae. So this is kingdom Plantae, plants. We can put them into two groups, vascular plants and non-vascular plants. Sanala Shaka saha Vinala Shaka. Vascular plants means they have a tube system to transport water and nutrients. Non-vascular plants means they don't have a tube system to transport water and food. Example, mosses, primitive mosses-like plants. If you look at vascular plants, we are not going to discuss this. If you look at the vascular plants, further we can divide into three groups: ferns, gymnosperms, angiosperms. Vascular plants can be divided into ferns, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. Ferns, Parnanga, gymnosperms like cycas, and angiosperms are flowering plants, tea, rubber, coconut like plants. All these angiosperm, Sapushpashaka, they produce flowers. Flower can convert into a seed or fruit. So the embryo is well protected. Angiosperms. And these are the non-vascular plants. So these are the mosses, right? You don't have to remember about this. These are the mosses group. They don't have vascular system. But we are concerned about the vascular plants. If you look at the features, they develop vascular tissues. What are the vascular tissues? Xylem tissue to transport water and minerals or nutrients upward from the roots. Xylem tissue transport water and nutrients from roots to the leaves. Phloem tissue transport food throughout the plant. This is bidirectional transport. This is only bottom to up. Here, up to bottom, bottom to up, both possible. As an example, in the carrot plant, when they produce food in the leaves, they can transport it into the roots and store. Or else, if you look at jack tree produce fruits, sorry, food in the leaves, then they transport it in not to the roots, but to the branches, and branches have fruits. And they store their food in maybe branches, right? So they can transport even from the, as an example, in the case of roots, sometimes it can dissolve and transfer into the leaves as well. So bidirectional is possible with phloem, but xylem unidirectional. Right. Then when you look at angiosperms or flowering plants, I told you ovule is enclosed. You can see the fruit, seed. Within the seed, you have the ovule, ovary and ovules, well protected. Seeds are enclosed. But gymnosperms these are called Sapushpashaka, these are called gymnosperms. I can't remember the name. Seeds are not protected because ovules are not completely protected. So seeds are not protected. You can find seeds here. But higher plants, seeds are well protected. That is the difference. So gymnosperms, seeds are born here, so they are not protected. But higher plants, seeds are well protected. So if you look at angiosperms, we can put them into two groups, two classes, Liliopsida, or we call monocotyledons or monocots, and Magnoliopsida, dicotyledons or dicots. Angiosperms can be recognized under two groups, monocots and dicots. If you look at the features, monocots have only one cotyledon. එක බීජපත්‍රයයි තියෙන්නේ. Leaves have parallel veins. Here you can see veins. They are parallel to each other. But dicots venation is we call reticulate or network of veins. And it has two seed cotyledons. බීජපත්‍ර දෙකක් තියෙනවා. Then there's no tissue called cambium here, but here cambium present. Root system is fibrous. Here root system is taproot, right? Those are the basic differences of monocot and dicot plants, right? Okay, with that, let me stop the first and second chapter. With that, I can move to the third chapter. Okay, third chapter, plant vegetative morphology. Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Right, thank you. So in plant vegetative morphology, we look at the external appearance of the plants, right? So this is the yellow, describe the main parts of a plant body. It's very simple, even O level you learned it. Then explain the functions and different regions and modifications of the plant root system and shoot system. Functions, regions, and modifications of shoots and root system. Then describe the functions and morphological differences of leaves. Right. If you look at morphology, in morphology, we study the diversity and different forms and external appearance of the plants and its parts. ශාක රූපාකාරයේදී ඉගෙන ගන්නේ බාහිර රූපාකාරය සහ එහි විවිධත්වය ගැන. If you look at the plant, you know, these are very basic things. So let me go a little bit fast. One part is underground, usually in a typical plant. This is the root system. Other part is above ground, that is called shoot system area. So you should be able to name all the parts of a plant, right? It is given here, right? I'm not going to repeat it, but I can discuss later in a minute. Then first, let's look at the root system. You know, root system is usually underground. So root system can be divided into two groups. Taproot system, where you can see the main trunk is extended. And from this one, secondary and maybe tertiary roots appear and they produce rootlets. Contrary to that, the other one is fibrous root system. Main trunk, if present, is not continued, but you get similar size, similar shape, large number of same diameter roots. And they form rootlets. Those are the fibrous systems. So, you know, monocots have fibrous root system, dicots have taproot system. If you look at the functions of roots, they provide anchorage to the plant. to fix the plant to the soil, it is important. Then absorption of water and nutrients from the soil. When we apply nutrients, fertilizers to the soil, first fertilizers should dissolve in water. Then that form can be absorbed through roots. Then roots also absorb oxygen. You may think that plants can absorb oxygen only from the leaves. That is correct. Plants absorb oxygen from leaves, but even roots need to respire. So roots also absorb oxygen. Then storage. Certain cases like carrot, sweet potato, they store food in the root. Then in vegetative propagation, sometimes you can separate root cuttings and use it as a propagator. So those are the functions of root system. So when you look at the structures of the root system, regions of the roots, this is a diagram. Outermost cover of the root is called root cap. So the root cap protect the interior, because the interior is very sensitive. Rooftop interior is very sensitive because it has apical meristem, where function is cell division. Cells divide and produce large number of cells. Then in the area of elongation, the root increase its length as well as width. Then the next area is region of maturation. Area of maturation, these cells differentiate and form root hairs. So root hairs can absorb water and nutrients from the soil. So those are the 4 regions. Root cap, it protects the tender apex of the root. Region of cell division, within the root cap, you have the region of cell division, and it has meristematic activity. Meristematic activity means cells are dividing very rapidly, so that these cells are elongated and enlarged in area of elongation, so that roots can increase in its length and increase its diameter. Then these cells undergo differentiation. They change from simple to little bit complex modifications. They undergo a modification and they produce root hairs. So they can absorb water and minerals from here. So you should be able to draw, sketch a diagram and label, identify different parts of a root and functions of different regions, right? කට්ටිය මුලක් දර්ශීය මුලක් ඇඳලා අර හැපැති පින්තූරේ තිබ්බා. ඒකේ පොතෙත් පින්තූරයක් තියෙනවා. root cap, root region of cell division, ඒ වගේ අඳුරගෙන ඒවල කාර්යභාරය මොකක්ද කියලා කියන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕනේ. Right? Okay. But when you, if I ask you to draw, you no need to draw these cells, right? You can just draw it like this. This is the root cap. Root cap. Apical meristem, area of elongation, then area of maturation. This is the area of maturation, right? Right. Likewise, you can just label it. You don't have to give these details. ඔකට අඳින්න දුන්නොත් මේ වගේ line diagram එකක් ඇඳලා areas ටික නම් කරන්න. Okay. Next, modification of the root system. Usually, plant root has either taproot or fibrous root system, but sometimes roots are modified, as you can see here. This is banyan tree, nougat tree, and they perform specific functions like storage of food, could be support, respiration, etc. So if you look at this example, aerial roots. Roots are long and arise from the stems, and this gives some support. We call adventitious roots. or prop roots. Karumul, Batakeya, Nugawala තියෙනවල දෙන්නේ support එකක් ගහට කඳට support එකක් දෙන එක තමයි කරන්නේ. Aerial roots. Then in Cuscuta, Agabula natival, Cuscuta plant, roots are parasitic. So they can absorb nutrients, water and nutrients from the host plant. These are the roots. Then epiphytic roots in orchids, the roots are epiphytic. Some roots help plant to fix into the substrate. The other roots are in air. As you can see here, these aerial roots can absorb moisture from air. And plant is green in color, so they can photosynthesize, but moisture, they are not rooted to the soil, so they absorb moisture from the atmosphere. Those are called epiphytic roots. Then tuberous roots like carrot, beet, radish, food is stored in roots. Some not only food, some amount of water is also stored in roots, swollen roots. Then if you look at this one, this is called pneumatophores. P is silent, so we call pneumatophores. Rina Gurutwakarshi mul, they produce negatively geotrophic roots away from the soil. This is a mangrove area, Kadolana Parisara Paddhatiya. So if you go to mangrove area, some roots are growing away from the soil substrate, negatively geotrophic. They are called pneumatophores. The function is absorption of oxygen, because this is always under flood and it has high salt. So plant cannot absorb oxygen. So oxygen is absorbed through these roots, pneumatophores. Then leguminous plants, they form root nodules, and these root nodules can fix atmospheric nitrogen into organic nitrogen. So in leguminous plants, or now the family is called Fabaceae plants, their roots produce nodules, and these nodules are capable of converting nitrogen into organic nitrogen. Ranila Kule Shaka, nitrogen tiragana. Okay, shoot system. So let me give a break, right? I need a break. Now it's 10:45. Please come back at 11 o'clock. Right? 10:45 now. Please come back at 11 o'clock. Then I will continue the shoot system. Right? Thank you. Right, thank you. Right, in the first session, I I discussed about the root system. Now let's look at shoot system very quickly. So you should be able to identify and label all parts of the aerial system. Right, leaves attached to the stem in a place, we call it node. In Sinhala, we call gataya. The distance between two nodes is called internode, parve. Through a stalk, leaf stalk only, leaf attached to the stem. When the petiole is missing, we call sessile. Some plant leaves, they don't have any petioles, so we call sessile. So this terminology is important because when you come to the practical class also, you have to remember this terminology in English, right? So please remember these terms. I will do it again so that you will remember it, but try to remember the names. Then leaves attached to the stems in a place where you get a bud. You call it axillary bud, Parshvik Ankura. And usually any plant have a terminal bud. At the end of the shoot, you have a terminal bud, Agrastha Ankure. In some leaves, at the place where leaf attached to the stem, you get a small outgrowth we call stipules, Upapatra. What are the functions of stems? Stems support the display of leaves, flowers, and fruits. They bear and display leaves, flowers, and fruits. Then also they conduct water and minerals up from roots to the leaves. Then conduct nutrients in the form of sugars. They give protection. As an example, these thorns of patok, of puntia, they give protection. Then they manufacture food. If you look at here, stem is green in color. It doesn't have leaves, so they can produce their own food. In the case of climbers, they use these climbers stems to climb up. So it is kind of anchorage. In this one, they store food. Then in vegetative propagation, we use cuttings, stem cuttings. Stem modifications, stems, apart from usual functions, sometimes stems are modified for special purposes. As you see, rhizomes, in a rhizome, as you can see in curcumin and ginger, stem is underground. So it is completely green in color. Sorry, brown in color. They don't have any green color. Whole stem is underground, and the rhizome is parallel to the or horizontal to the ground level. They grow horizontally. They have buds, and they have these nodes, scale leaves. Distance between node is internode. Then they have adventitious roots as well. Then if you look at onion, it's a bulb. This is the underground stem. From the stem, fleshy leaves arise and they continue into green leaves above the ground level. These are the leaves. These are the lateral buds. They have roots. Combs, rhizome is parallel to the ground or horizontal, but comb is grow vertically. Comb also have nodes, internode, buds, etc. This is the pseudo stem. This is not the actual stem. Then potato tuber is the stem. It has buds, scale leaves, etc. Then go to color. Central Asiatica, stem is a runner or stolons. So it helps in extension of the plant. Then some stems modified into tendrils, pahuru, like passion fruit. Then pathok, opuntia, stem is flattened and make a cladode. Flattened stem, green in color, so it can photosynthesize and produce food. Leaves are converted into thorns, spines, so it gives protection. Those are the stem modifications. Then leaves, you should be able to label all parts of a leaf. This is the leaf lamina or leaf blade. Margin, sometimes margin have different shapes, dentate, etc. This is the petiole. If petiole is absent, we use the term sessile. Then stipules present sometimes, not always. This is the leaf base. This is the leaf tip. Petiole, stipules, blade, midrib. This midrib. Midrib is extended to petiole and it helps to transport food and nutrients and water. Then monocot leaves extended, base is extended and form a leaf sheath. This is called leaf sheath. In rice plant or weeds, you can find leaf sheath. Venation, dicot plants, venation is reticulate. Monocot plants, venation is parallel. Functions of leaves, you know, the major function is photosynthesis. It has chlorophyll, so it can produce their own food. They can absorb carbon dioxide and liberate oxygen. During this process, they store food, energy in the form of sugar, then let it convert to carbohydrate. You have learned about the photosynthesis with Professor Abe Singh. Apart from that, it has another important function, evaporative cooling. When leaves evaporate water through transpiration, utsvedana venakota, to water to become vapor, you need some heat or temperature or energy. Plants obtain that energy from the outside heat or solar radiation. So they absorb heat and evaporate water in gaseous or not gaseous form, vapor form. For this process, plant need energy or heat. So during this process, plant leaf can cool the environment. So, you know, if you stay in hot sun under, say, pare mara tree, giant mara tree, Semenia saman or rain tree, it is cool, more humidity. Why? Because of the evaporative cooling power of the leaves. It has large number of leaves, so it can cool the environment. So this is very important phenomena. So, you know, we encourage people to grow trees, more trees in urban areas, because urban areas, we have a lot of concrete structures, concrete buildings, they can heat up. So this heat, liberated heat, lead to a phenomenon called urban heat island effect. You will learn it later. And urban heating is real issue. So if you have more plants, we can cool the environment. So you will learn more about these things when you follow landscape technology course in third year. So I'm going to discuss in detail about this phenomenon, urban heat island effect, and how to avoid it by using plants. Certain plants are very good to reduce this effect. Even in your home garden, you can grow these plants, so you can get a good effect. Compare, not all plants, some plants have a more positive effect, right? So we'll discuss it later. Right. So leaves have two functions, production of food and evaporative cooling. When you look at leaves, some leaves are simple, sarala patra. Some leaves have compound. They are called compound calls leaves, Sangyukta patra. Because in this one, here plant lamina is or leaf blade is entire. But here, leaf is break into leaflets. Patrikavalt bidila. So we called it compound leaves. Compound leaves, how can you distinguish compound leaf from a simple leaf? Because this is a simple leaf. Is this a leaf? No. Then this is a leaflet. How do you know that this is a leaflet? Can anybody tell me this is a leaflet, not a leaf? You can easily recognize it because every leaf you have an axillary bud, as you can see here. Every leaf has an axillary bud. හැම පත්‍රයකම පාර්ශ්වික අංකුරයක් එතන තියෙන්න ඕනේ. So in here, this is a leaf and it is divided into leaflets. So you get the axillary bud at this point, not at this point. So you can easily identify whether it's a leaf or not. These are leaflets, so no axillary buds. Here you get the axillary bud, so these are leaflets. Again here you get leaflet axillary bud here. So these are leaflets. So this is the petiole. In the petiole, leaflets are attached. Okay. සෑම පත්‍රයකම පටන් ගන්න තැන පාර්ශ්වික අංකුරයක් තිබිය යුතුයි. Compound leaves can be further divided into two: pinnately compound leaf and palmately compound leaf. In pinnately compound leaf, leaflets are present on a common axis. This is the common axis. Leaflets are attached to the common axis. As an example, neem. Palmately compound leaves, leaflets are attached to a common point, single point. All the leaflets are attached to a single point, as you can see here. In the case of manioc, rubber, leaflets are attached to a single point. So you call it palmately compound leaf. Pinnately compound leaves, leaflets are attached to a common axis. That's the difference. Then leaf arrangement. You should know this leaf arrangement by heart. This is called alternate. Sometimes it is arranged spirally, sarpilakara. Then sometimes it may attach in opposite way. Sometimes it may attach in opposite decussate manner. In two planes. You called it opposite decussate. Opposite decussate කියන්නේ තල දෙකකට කොළ මෙතන ඔකට දෙවෙන පත්‍ර attach වෙලා තියෙන තල දෙකකින්. World means if more than two leaves But, can you hear me?
Now,
we
yes,
can
sir.
hear you.
Yes, because there was a power failure and I joined with my mobile data, right? So if there's any issue, please call me, right? Because I didn't know that about the power failure. It took some time to realize it. Okay. Did you hear this one, pattern of leaf arrangement? මෙටික ඇහුණද මං කියනවා pattern
Yes,
of
sir.
leaf arrangement. All right, okay. So leaf shapes, there are different shapes, but you don't have to remember all these shapes. It's not practical. But in the practical class, they will give you few shapes. So remember only few shapes. It will be helpful in the practical only, right? For the practical, it will be helpful. So remember only few shapes. No need to remember all the shapes. It's not possible. Right, leaf modifications. So leaves or part of leaves, just like stems and roots, can be modified for special purposes, like tendrils. This is the tendrils, pahuru. In earliest stem, it was a stem modification, but here leaves also can be modified into tendrils. Then leaves can be turned into spines, as you can see here in pathok, for protection. Then pitcher plant, nepenthes, this one. This is the leaf end is modified and form the pitcher and not the flower, right? So insects, when they move in, they're trapped here. So it's a symbiotic association where the plant can get nitrogen. So not symbiotic, it is a parasitic. And then bougainvillea leaves converted to hooks, so it can climb up. So those are the leaf modifications, right? With that, let me move to the fourth chapter. So in the previous chapter, we discussed about leaves, stems, and roots. Now, flowers, floral morphology. So at the end of the lecture, you should be able to explain the structure and function of a flower, then the difference between a single flower and inflorescence, then about from bisexual and unisexual flower, and about fruits, right? If you look at flowers, usually flowers are born on top of the plant. Flowers are not hidden. If you look at aquatic plants like water lilies, they come above leaves and they produce their flowers. So they advertise. So in plants, reproductive organs are always advertised. Everybody can see the beauty. But in the case of animals, we hide our reproductive structures until we need to use it. We never expose it. But in the case of flowers, they always advertise it. Why? Because they want to attract others to their flowers. So that is the difference between reproductive structure of animals and plants. Flower consists of four parts. Parts that protect the flower. As you see here, this flower is protected with, inside is protected with green color sepals and petals. Then flower base, plants at all the parts attached to this base. Then male part and female part. Those are the four parts. Let's quickly look at these parts in detail. First, parts that protect the flower, sepals. This is the outermost cover, and collectively we call it calyx. So calyx together enclose the inner part of the flower during development of male and female parts. Inner to the calyx or sepal, you get petals. Petals together called corolla, malpeti. Corolla are usually larger and colorful by to attract animals. Then flower base is called receptacle. This place, all the parts of the flower is attached to the base. We call it receptacle. So outermost, first attach the sepals or calyx. Next, corolla is attached. Thereafter, male organs, andrecium is attached, and innermost part is the gynoecium, because gynoecium is the most important part, so it is well protected. Then flower stalk is called pedicel. This is the flower stalk, pedicel. Andrecium is the male part. It includes stamens. These stamens are usually surrounded the gynoecium. Stamen has two parts. This is called anther and this is called filament, right? Anther and filament. So you know anther, this anther produce pollens or male spores. Female part consists with three parts. This is called stigma. They become sticky when it ready to pollinate. Stigma, style, and ovary. Those are the three parts. Then ovary, within the ovary, you have ovules. They attach to the rooms called carpels. This is one room, so it has one carpel. Some this is a typical flower. You should be able to draw and label parts of a typical flower. So in the practical, I will give you some flowers so you can cut and draw and identify the parts. So this is the pedicel or stalk. This is the base or receptacle. Outermost sepals are attached, then petals, then this is a stamen, this is anther, this is filament, together called stamen or androecium. This is the female part, stigma, style, ovary, collectively known as carpel, and this is the female part, gynoecium. Male part is known as andrecium. Function of flowers is reproduction. This is the main function. So it starts with pollination and fertilization. And flowers are also advertise themselves to attract pollinators. Could be bats, could be bees and other insects. Then flowers are also useful in plant identification. If you want to identify a new plant, we have to use flowering characters. Then we have horticultural uses, like for beautify our garden, we use zinnia, marigold, like daspetia like flowers. Then as edible flowers, we eat cauliflower, sesbernia, etc. So these flowers are edible. And also we use certain flowers as cut flowers, like anthurium, water lilies. And some flowers are born solitary. So we call single flower. But some flowers are gathered and arranged in clusters. So we call inflorescence. If you look at the inflorescences, there are different groups, types of inflorescences. I have grouped them so that I can explain it easily, right? First, spike. What do you mean by a spike? Here in a spike, there is a axis, and to the axis, flowers are attached. Flowers are attached to the axis like this. And flowers doesn't have any stalks. So flowers are sessile, as you can see here. No pedicels, no stalk. So flowers are directly attached to the axis. Then raceme. Raceme means these flowers have stalks. As you can see, sorry. these flowers have stalks. Stalks and flowers are attached to the stalk. As you can see here. Third one, panicle. The axis is divided into branches, and branches have flowers. So you called it panicle. So initially, axis, no pedicels. Axis with pedicels. Here, axis is branched. So you call panicle. So these are the examples you can see here. Examples for spike. This is for raceme. You can see the stalk. This is panicle. Guinea grass is a panicle. You can see it is divided. Axis is divided. Okay. Those are the first three groups. Then corim, umbel, and catkin. Let's look at these things. Corim, if you look at it, flowers, stalks are longer at the bottom, or mature ones. Young ones, it is very shorter. So it's at the same level, flat topped inflorescence. Young flowers at the center or middle of the axis, mature flowers at the end of the axis. This is called corymb. Next, umbel. In the umbel, all the flowers, stalks begin at the single point. At this point, all the flower stalks arise. You call it umbel, flat-topped inflorescence, where all the stalks or pedicels, they arise from a single point, umbel. Catkin. In a catkin, all the flowers doesn't have any pedicel and they are hanging. It's a special group, right? Catkin. Right? This is corymb. You can see mature flowers, they have longer stalks. Younger have smaller ones. Umbel all arise from the same point. This is a catkin. It is pendular, apetalous, no petals. Right. Next two groups, cyme and spadix. What is cyme? Flat-topped inflorescence with oldest flowers at the end of the main axis. So it is going to happen like this. This is the main axis. Then from the main axis, secondary branch arise, tertiary branch, fourth one, fifth one likewise. Then primary axis, there's a flower, end of the second axis, there is a flower, end of third axis, just like that. You called it cyme. Then spadix. Spadix is, as an example, anthurium. It has a thick, fleshy spike. And this has flowers. Male flowers are clusters at the top, female flowers are at the bottom. As you can see here, this is the cyme, and this is the, I hope you all have seen this. This is called, you all might have seen this in your home gardens. What do you call it? At Honda, it is a cyme. You can see it is inflorescence is rolled, and you see sometimes butterflies in large numbers come and visit these flowers as well as leaves. They absorb a chemical, and they use that chemical to produce a pheromone. So the male butterflies can attract large number of female butterflies. So if you want to have common tiger in large numbers in your home garden, you can grow this Athonda plant. You might have seen this. Okay. That is sign, and this is the spadix. In the spadix, you can see flowers are attached to the common fleshy thick spike. And this is the modification of spade. So it's colorful to attract insects. So you see, this is the example. So male flowers are at the bottom. Female flowers are at the bottom. So you see fruits, seeds at the bottom, not at the top. Top you get male flowers. Bottom you get female flowers. So you get seeds at the bottom. So a spade is enlarged, colorful, so it gives some beauty. Right, okay, spadix and spade. Then incomplete versus complete flowers. Usually in a flower, male and female parts, androecium and gynoecium, are considered as essential part of the flower. And calyx and corolla, petals and sepals, they are additional parts or accessory parts. So any flower, these are the essential part, male part and female part. Incomplete flowers means if a given flower lack of one or more of four parts, calyx, corolla, androecium or gynoecium. If one of these parts are lacking, we call incomplete flowers. If the flower consists with all the parts, essential and accessory parts, we call complete flowers. Incomplete flowers කියලා කියන්නේ අංග හතරෙන් එකක් හෝ වැඩි ගාණක් නැති වුණා. Bisexual flowers means flowers have both androecium and gynoecium. Bisexual flower has male part and female flowers part both. So we call bisexual. Bi means two, sexual dvi-linga. Unisexual means uni means one sex. Flowers with one sex are called unisexual flowers. It could have either gynoecium, so we call pistillate flowers. It could have only androecium, then they are known as staminate flowers. Monoecious and dioecious. What do you mean by monoecious? Mono means one. Cious means in Latin house. One house. Monoecious, one house. So plants having both male and female flowers born on the same plant. So you call monoecious plants. What is dioecious? Di means two, cious means house, two houses. If the male and female flowers are born on separate individual plants, you call dioecious plants. So you have male plant and a female plant separately. එක ගෘහි එක ගෙදරයි ගෑනු පිරිමි මල් ඔක්කොම එක ගෙදර තියෙන්නේ ගහේ තියෙන්නේ ද්විගෘහී කියන්නේ ගෑනු මල් තියෙන ගස් වෙනමයි පිරිමි මල් තියෙන ගස් වෙනමයි. Okay, then there's another phenomenon, right, fruit called parthenocarpy usually when a fruit become mature, ovary develop after fertilization and produce seeds. That is the normal phenomenon. But sometimes in certain fruits, the fruit can develop without fertilization. So ultimately you will have seedless fruits. Like banana, Atticale has a seed, but ordinary develop banana, they don't have any seeds. Pineapple don't have any seeds because they develop without fertilization. That is called Partheni. This can be artificially induced or it can be naturally present. So as you see here in oranges, it is artificially induced and produce seedless oranges. They have a high demand in the market. Even grapes, seedless grapes are available in the market. Seedless tomatoes are available. Seedless salad cucumbers available. Seedless Ananaceae are available. Seedless kiwi fruits are available. So now there's a tendency to develop parthenocarpic fruits, which have high demand in the market. Okay. With that, let me move to the last topic of this chapter, fruits. Fruit, if you look at the fruit, wall of the fruit, or we call pericarp, can be either fleshy or dry. In the case of fleshy pericarp, it is usually divided into 3 layers. Outermost cover is called epi or exocarp. That is the outer wall, epi or exocarp. Inner to that, you get mesocarp, middle layer. We used to eat middle layer or mesocarp in avocado and in mango. Inner to that, you get the endocarp, that is the innermost layer, and the seed is protected with 3 layers. Why mango is important for us? It is edible, tasty fruit, but they develop this outermost cover, middle cover, and inner cover for the one thing is for the protection of the seed and embryo. That is the objective of the fruit, to protection of the embryo. And secondly, to animal like bats, they used to eat this. So they carry this away from mother plant. So dispersal also, this is important. Then some fruits are not fleshy, they are dry. So they can, by mode of open, they can put into two groups. Fruits with split open or dehiscent, called, as you can see here, beans, fruit is split open, dehiscent. But if you look at ratakaju, peanuts, it is closed at the maturity. We call it indehiscent. Okay, that's all about fruits and flowers. With that, let me move to the next topic. Okay, next chapter. So we initially discussed about morphology, about roots, shoots, and leaves. Then we look at flowers. Then flower should pollinate to produce a seed. So let's look at pollination. ILO, at the end of the session, you should be able to describe the term pollination and type of pollination, then identifying agents of pollination, then about pollination syndrome. Next, pollinator syndromes associated with different flower types. You should be able to explain it. And finally, importance of pollination in agriculture. Okay. So when a flower is mature and when it is pollinated, it will lead to the fertilization and development of seeds. So in pollination process, these plants produce pollens. Male part produce pollens. Then these pollens, these are the pollens. Then these pollens will move to the stigma of a flower. That is called pollination. This can happen naturally or by an agent like wind, water, or in most cases by an insect. So pollination, without pollinators, what will happen? Can you imagine the world without this insect or pollination? We will not have any food to eat. We will not have any plants, green color, because majority of the crops need pollination by animals. Out of 1,400 crops, about 80% require pollination. So without pollination, there will be no life on earth. We will not have enough food. So remember, this service is free of charge. These insects, they never charge us for that process. It is free of charge. So we don't value it. As a result, we destroy large number of these insects in our surrounding environment, which led to the phenomenon called pollinator crisis. I'm not going to discuss about this at this point, but there's a thing called pollinator crisis because human being, you and me, we destroy large number of these pollinators by applying chemicals, fertilizer, could be pesticides, destroying their living places. So globally, there's a crisis. Unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, still, we haven't recognized the gravity of this crisis. But in other countries, they recognize it and they take remedial action for to avoid this or minimize this problem. So if you look at certain plants like okra, it can self-pollinate. But if it is pollinated by an insect, it will give larger, tastier, and quality fruits and high yield as well. So what is pollination? Pollination is the transfer of pollen from male anther to the female stigma. It could happen in the same plant or between two plants. That is called pollination. Pollination usually doesn't happen in between two species. It is going to happen between single species. පරාගණය කියලා කියන්නේ ගහක පිරිමි මලක තියෙන පරාග එම ගහේ එම මලේම හෝ එම ගහේම හෝ එම විශේෂයෙන් වෙනත් ගහක කීලේ නේද කීලේ මත පතිත වීම. So this is important in the sexual reproduction of the plants. If you look at pollination can happen in two ways, as you know, self-pollination and cross-pollination. So paragane sa paraparagane. What is self-pollination? The pollen from the anther is deposited on the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant. If pollination is going to happen within the plant, you call self-pollination. So පරාගණය කියලා කියන්නේ එකම ශාකයක් තුල සිදුවෙන පරාගණය. ශාක දෙකක් අතර නෙවෙයි. It is common in bisexual flowers. So nectar and pollen production are not very much required in these plants. Why plants produce nectar and pollen? More nectar and more pollen to attract insects. So this is not that much required. So what is cross-pollination? It is the transfer of pollen from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower on different individuals of the same species. Pollen transferred to the stigma of another flower, not within the plant, in between two plants, but within the same species. It should occur between coconut plants or between tea plants, between rice plants. පරාගණය කියලා කියන්නේ ගස් දෙකක් අතර සිදුවෙන පරාගණයට. If you look at cell pollination, it can be of two types, autogamy and geitonogamy. What is autogamy? Pollen transfer within the same flower. As you can see here, if pollen transfer is going to happen within the same flower, you call autogamy. What is getinogamy? It means pollination is going to happen on the same plant, but in between two different flowers. The pollen of this flower and is going to land on stigma of another flower of the same plant. Getinogamy. So self-pollination can be two types, autogamy and getinogamy. What are the advantages of self-pollination? If self-pollination is going to happen, there will be less genetic diversity because characters of only the same plant will be mixed. So, especially in crop production, like when you grow plants like carrot, we like to have same characters. So, like in tomato, so that what will happen? You can harvest at the same time. Imagine in the field, when you grow tomato in the field, maybe 1 hectare, if fruits going to mature at different times, what will happen? We have to spend more money to harvest fruits from time to time. It's tedious process. And you might not be able to meet the market demand at a given time. So if self-pollination happens, what will happen? All the plants have same characters. So all the plants will mature and produce fruits at the same time, almost same time. So you can harvest at a given time, right? So genetic variation will be very low. So this is a good character when we come to crop production. Like in the tea, we maintain it by using cuttings. So all the plants will be similar. Characters will be similar. Just like in fruits, vegetables, we like that character. Then plants do not depend on external factors for pollination. Even smaller quantities of pollen grains are good. Because when it is going to happen, self-pollination is going to happen, you don't need insects for pollination. It doesn't matter. And usually if the plant is cross-pollinated, the plant produce large number of pollens. Why? Because most pollen can be wasted. Producing large number of pollens means what? We have to use lot of energy for that, food for that. So it will be a waste. So wastage can be minimized. Those are the advantages. ස්වපරාගනයේ වාසි තමයි ස්වපරාගනය වුණ ගස් අතර ජෙනටික් වේරියේෂන් එක ජානමය විවිධත්වය අඩුයි. එක විදිහට පැල ටික තියෙන්නේ. අනිත් එක තමයි ගහේ ශක්තිය අනවශ්‍ය ලෙසට වැය වෙන්නේ නැහැ පුඩා පරාග හදන්න. Third one, if self-pollination is going to happen, all the recessive characters, undesirable recessive characters will be eliminated from the population. ස්වපරාගනයේ දිගටම වුණොත් අනවශ්‍ය නිරීන ලක්ෂණ ඔක්කොම ඒ population එකෙන් නැති වෙලා යනවා. ඒතකොට අපිට ඕනම ලක්ෂණ විතරයි ඉතුරු වෙන්නේ. So due to self-pollination is practiced in vegetables and fruit seed production, so they maintain consistent quality. Good qualities are maintained throughout the progenies. What are the disadvantages of self-pollination? As mentioned earlier, no mixing of genes, so no new characters. All the offsprings are similar. So what will happen? If there's a disease outbreak, new disease outbreak, all the population can be wiped out. ජානමය සංයුතිය වෙනස් නැති නිසා අලුත් ලෙඩ රෝගයක් ආවොත් ඔක්කොම පැල ටික එකට ගොදුරු වෙන්න පුළුවන්. There will be no any resistant plants in the case of a disease. And self-pollination said to reduce the vigor or vitality as no new features are introduced. So with time, introducing new features to the plant is important because the fittest plant will survive and it can increase its progeny. But this is not going to happen with self-pollination. ශාක අතර විවිධත්වය නැති නිසා වඩාත්ම රොත්තු දෙන ගස් ඉතුරු වෙලා එයාගෙන් එන කට්ටිය වැඩි වෙගෙන යන ගතිය නැති වෙලා යන නිසා පොපියුලේෂන් එකේ තියෙන ශක්ති විග එක කියලා කියන්නේ ඒක නැති වෙලා යනවා self pollination. Then offsprings are immunity to diseases reduces. So all the offspring will be susceptible for diseases because no variation. So some plants have mechanisms to avoid self-pollination because self-pollination is sometimes not useful. How? Maturation of pollen and ovary at different times. Even male and female flowers may be born on the single plant, but they might mature in different times. First, pollen might mature. Then after 2 weeks, ovary might mature. So there's no chance for self-pollination. In crops like cucumber, male and female flowers located on different parts of the plant, thus making self-pollination difficult. So in cucumber, male and female flowers are born on upper and lower parts, just like in anthurium. So there's a less chance for self-pollination. So in පිපිඤ්ඤවල ගෑනු පිරිමි මල් හටගන්නේ ශාකයේ ඉහළ සහ පහළ කොටස් වල ඇන්තුරින් වල වගේ. එතකොට self pollination වෙන හැකියාව අඩු වෙනවා. Then some plants flowers have developed physical features that prevent self pollination. Like sometimes stamens may be moved away from the plant stigma. So there's less chance for self pollination. Then in certain plants, male and female flowers are born on different plants, like dioecious. If the plant is dioecious, there's no chance for self-pollination. With that, let me move to the cross-pollination. Once again, let's discuss advantages and disadvantages of self-pollination. What are the advantages of cross-pollination? When cross-pollination occurs, all genes are always mixed up. So there's a recombination of genetic material. So you can develop new varieties. So these new varieties may be high yielding. As an example, if you want to develop new, say, drought-resistant plant, you can go to the wild plants and get the exact character and mix it with the improved crop. So the new variety will be drought resistant. Likewise, you can improve crops. Then offsprings produced are healthy and strong due to hybrid vigor. Then the plants produced will be very strong due to hybrid vigor. When mix plants together, certain good characters come into operation. So hybrid vigor. Certain crops give high yields only if cross-pollination is allowed to occur. So yield can be increased if cross-pollination is there. As an example, with soursop, not amarella, soursop is anoda. When it soursop pollinated, you get a full fruit. Even it is true with strawberry as well. So yield can be increased. Variation resulting into origin of disease-resistant plants, like drought-resistant, disease-resistant plants can be produced with cross-pollination. Disadvantages: cross-pollination depends on the agents. So there's an uncertainty. If agent is absent, plant will not get pollinated. And cross-pollination is not beneficial from the economic point of view. Why? For the cross-pollination, the plant should produce large number of pollens. So it is a waste of energy. Right. Then let's quickly look at agents of pollination. Pollination can be led due to the two factors, biotic factors. Then we call biotic pollination, abiotic factors, dead non-living factors, we call abiotic pollination. These are the biotic pollination. animals, birds, bats, butterflies, bees, beetles, moths, ants. These things, these creatures can contribute to pollination. We called it biotic pollination. No need to know these scientific terms, right? Only you can remember these common names of the agents. Or else, it can be due to the wind or water. We called it abiotic pollination. With that, let me move to the topic pollination syndrome. What do you mean by pollination syndrome? Right. When you might have seen this phenomenon. Sunbird with a long beak visit tubular shaped flowers and they get nectar. So if you look at the tubular shaped flowers, the shape is tubular. This shape evolved parallelly with the sunbird's beak. So the flower shape and the beak of this bird, both these were evolved parallelly. So this sunbird can get nectar from the tubular shaped flowers. So it is beneficial for the bird. Why? Bird can get food. It is beneficial for the plant. Why? The plant can get pollinated. So it is a mutual beneficial thing. So tubular shape, called pollinator syndrome, co-evolved with sunbirds. You call it pollinator syndromes. sunbird කියලා කියන්නේ මේ පැණිකුරුල්ලාගේ හොටේ සහ පැණිකුරුල්ලා සහ මේ tubular shape flowers පරිණාමය වුණේ එක parallel co-evolved එක සමගාමීව පරිණාමය වුණේ. එතකොට හැම වෙලේම මේ sunbird පුළුවන් පැණිකුරුල්ලට මේකට හොට දාලා එයාට ආහාර ලබා ගන්න. එතකොට සතාටත් වාසි අවශ්‍ය ආහාර ලැබෙනවා. මලට වාසි මොකද මල පරාගණය වෙනවා. Right? So this is plants and pollinators are co-evolved for certain physical characters. So they can interact in a very positive manner. So it is a mutual beneficial thing for the plant as well as to the pollinator. Those are pollinator syndromes. I don't know whether these students cannot understand, right? Even I don't have power. I am using my mobile data. So I join with the mobile data. So you also can join with mobile data if you don't have a power. And other thing is, if I use the recording on, right, I cannot continue with another one. So I have given that opportunity for you all. So you can record it. If anybody cannot record, the people who start recording can share it, right? And I told you several times that I am going to share the notes with you at the end of the class, right? So don't ask the question again and again, right? I will share the complete note set after the class for the Saturday and Sunday group, right? At least understand this, right? Because I also don't have power. I'm also conducting this with great difficulty. Right. Right. So pollinator syndromes. So animals, water, and wind can be vectors of pollen. So pollens can be carried away from plants by animals or water or wind. So if you look at the characters of flower, what characters? Shape, color, odor, nectar, structure are vary. If you look at flowers, different flowers have different colors, different shapes, different odors, scents. So those are called pollinator syndromes. Why flowers have different colors, different odors? This is because to attract a unique set of pollinators, right? These characters are considered as pollination syndromes and can be used to predict which type of pollinator will help in pollination. Say if you find tubular shaped flowers, we can guess that, oh, bird might visit that flower. If you find flat flowers, we can guess that, right, a bee might visit that flower. So if you know the pollination syndromes, you can guess which pollinator might visit. ඒ කියන්නේ මල්වල හැම මලක්ම එක විදිහ නෙවෙයි. විවිධ පාට වලින් යුක්තයි, විවිධ හැඩ වලින් යුක්තයි. සමහර ඒවල සුවඳ තියෙනවා, සමහර ඒවා උදේ ඇරෙන්නේ, සමහර ඒවා රෑ ඇරෙන්නේ. ඇයි මේ වගේ තියෙන්නේ? ඒ වගේ තියෙන්නේ ඒ ලක්ෂණයට අදාළව ගහට පුළුවන් තමාට ආවේනික වූ පරාගකාරකයව ආකර්ෂණය කරගන්න. ඉතින් මේ ලක්ෂණ වලට අපි කියනවා pollination syndromes කියලා. අපි මේ ලක්ෂණ දිහා බැලුවොත් අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් මේ මලට මෙයා වෙන්න දිනව ඇත්තේ කියලා. Okay? Right. So these are the potential pollinators and the pollinator syndromes of different flower types. These are the pollinators, different pollinators. Bats, bees, birds, butterflies, wind. These are the different pollinating agents. These are the different pollinator syndromes or traits, pollinator syndromes. First one, anthesis is time of opening. Anthesis කියලා කියන්නේ මල ඇරෙන වෙලාව. Some flowers open during night time, some flowers open during daytime. You know, bats visit during night time. So bat visited flowers usually open during night. Wind can be there during the day and night. So it is, wind pollinated flowers can open either day or in the night. But bee, birds and butterfly pollinated flowers always open during the daytime. මල් ඇරෙන වෙලාව රාත්‍රී කාලයේ පැමිණෙන බවුලු පැමිණෙන රාත්‍රී කාලේ මොත්ස්ලා පැමිණෙන රාත්‍රී කාලේ. එතකොට ඒ කට්ටියකින් පොලිනේට් වෙන මල් හැම වෙලෙම ඇරෙන්නේ රාත්‍රී කාලේදී විතරයි. Then color, there could be color overlaps, but bats, they don't see color. So bat pollinated flowers are usually white, green or purple, light colored. Not only that, even wind pollinated flowers also, either they don't have a color or could be green, brown or white color. And petals are absent in this case, wind pollinated flowers. But bee, bird and butterflies, they can see the color. So they are colorful. Bee pollinated flowers, usually white, yellow or blue. Usually, right? Even there could be red color flowers. Bird pollinated flowers, scarlet red, orange, red or maybe white. Butterfly pollinated flowers, they are usually bright, red or purple, including. Bright means it could be yellow, orange, any colors. So remember, bee, bird and butterfly pollinated flowers are colorful. Then for there's something called nectar guides. For the bee and butterfly pollinated flowers, nectar guides are present. But for others, they are absent. What is a nectar guide? Nectar guide means in some flowers, if you see, this is the flower. If you look at the flower under the UV light, you will see some guides. You can observe this only under the UV light. So butterflies and bees can focus their movement towards the flower because of these guides. So the guides are markings of patterns in flowers to guide pollinators. So the what will be the reward? Sometimes the pollinator can get pollen, or sometimes they can get nectar, sometimes they can get resin from the flower. Different rewards may be present, as you can see here. Nectar guide කියලා කියන්නේ සමහර මල් UV light එකකින් බලනකොට ultraviolet light එකකින් බලනකොට මේ වගේ ඉරි තියෙනවා guideline. ඒව දිගේ තමයි සත්තු එන්නේ මල වෙතට. යොමු කරවන්න තමයි ඒව පිටලා තියෙන්නේ. Right? So nectar guides present only in certain flowers. Odor. Usually night, in the night time, you might feel some, I mean, not unique odors emitting from flowers. So those flowers are pollinated by either bats or moths. රාත්‍රී කාලයේ පිපෙන අමුතු සුවඳක් තියෙන මල් තියෙනවනේ ඒවා ගොඩක් කරාට රාත්‍රී කාලේ නිසාසව සත්තුන්ගේ තමයි පොලිනේට් වෙන්නේ. Can you tell me any name of a plant which produce flowers during night time? Any flower?
Aduvul,
Can you remember? Yeah, Kadupul, very good. Then Rakumari, Cestrum, it also produce flowers during night time. So they have a unique taste, sorry, unique smell. And sometimes we don't like it. Some people don't like it, but it's unique. But, huh? Sorry?
Olu.
Olu, yes, they bloom during night time. Very good answer. Uh, and yes, probably I haven't noticed it, but probably nighttime pollinators might visit. Thank you. It's a very good answer. Olu. Even Actaria, they open flowers during night time. And most of these flowers are usually white in color, except Olu. Olu also have white color variety, right? Okay, so by looking at the characters of flowers, we can guess pollinators. It means by looking at the pollinator syndromes, we can guess the pollinator. Nectar. Usually, if the animal is large, like bat, it should have plenty large volume of nectar. But wind pollinated flowers, nectar is absent because no point. But for the bird pollinated flowers, usually quantity of production is larger compared to the bee pollinated flowers. Then pollens, for the wind pollinated flowers, it should produce large number of pollens. Why? Because a lot of pollen are going to be wasted. So abundantly produced. So, during cold time, sometimes we have fever. If the pollens are huge in density in the outdoor environment, sometimes we get fever. We call it, in other countries, it is known as hay fever, especially in Nureli area. If you are in Nureli area, sometimes during certain parts of the year, you get fever due to the pollen, allergic reactions. Because wind pollinators wind pollinated flowers produce pollens in large numbers. But if it is pollinated by bats also, bat has a huge body, so larger quantity is produced. But for the others, usually small quantity is produced. Flower shape, uh, usually wind pollinated flowers, the stigmas are move away from the flower. So it can pollens can easily landed on stigmas. Then, if you look at bat pollinated flowers, it has a regular shape or ball shape. So, bat can have access to the flowers, or stamens are uh, moved away from the flowers. So, it can touch easily. When the bat take nectar, it can easily touch the body of the bat. Then, bee pollinated flowers usually they are tubular in shape, just like bird pollinated flowers. They both share similar shapes. So if the animal is small like bee, it can move in without much difficulty. Butterfly pollinated flowers, sometimes certain butterflies have long proboscis, so they can land and put it into deep. So depending on the butterfly species, flower shape can be vary. But usually bee pollinated flowers are usually, they have a landing place so that we can land. But for birds, landing is not necessary. You see, sunbirds, they don't need any landing. They have very strong wings, so they can manage. Then flower size, bat pollinated flowers, then birds, butterflies, and wind pollinated flowers are usually large. But usually very small flowers are pollinated by bees. Not only ordinary bees, even wild bees, right? So those are the syndromes. Hand pollination, sometimes mechanical pollination is required in certain cases for pollination. We do it by mechanical way, by a brush. Then importance of pollination in agriculture. I told you 80% of the crop plants were pollinated by pollinators. So pollination is an important phenomena not only the managed bees, even there are a lot of wild animals, wild bees. They also play a crucial role in pollination. So this list is given in the book. Some vegetables, some fruit crops are pollinated by insects. So crop pollination affects not only quality of the fruit, but also quantity. So as an example, crops like okra, mangoes, if it is pollinated, they are self-pollinating. Self-pollination is possible, but if it is cross-pollinated, it gives better yield, high yields. Then many crops like passion fruit, cashew, cowpea give greater yield when it is pollinated by insects. And certain flowers are completely dependent on pollination by insects. So you can see significantly high yield. So insect pollination is favorable for high yield. So not only for the quantity, even for the quality. As I mentioned you all earlier, this soursop fruit, if it is misshapen, that is due to the insufficient pollination and fertilization of the ovaries. This has large number of ovules. If all are fertilized, you get a full fruit. This is true with strawberry as well. Sometimes you may get misshaped strawberries. This is due to insufficient pollination. Apart from that, you can read this. This is given in the book. Tea, though we use cuttings in propagation, if you want to improve crops, we have to use pollination. It is a cross-pollinated plant. Rubber, cocoa, oil palm, cloves, nutmeg, cinnamon, all spices, all get some benefit by cross-pollination when you want to develop new varieties. But usually for the plantation crops and other crops, cultivated plants, cross-pollination is not desirable, and we don't care about it because we consider only the if we have harvest. And to get a unique harvest, we need to most of the time we use either vegetative propagation methods or we use selfing to produce seeds, right? But if you want to improve crops, this is very important. But on the other hand, certain crops like okra, bean, etc., if cross-pollination is there with insects, it can significantly increase yield. Even with mango, avocado, it is favorable. Right, that is all about pollination. Earlier I planned to continue until 12:45, but due to lack of power, I am going to stop here. So please use the second link to join. How many of you don't have power? I also don't have power. So if in the afternoon also, if I don't have power, I will quickly move and try to finish it because I don't want to drag this to another day because I think you also like to finish it. So I will finish it today. So I will start exactly at 1:30, right? Now it's 12:15. I will start at 1:30. Rep, please pass this message in the your group. So I'm going to start at 1:30 and finish quickly, right? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.